And you're listening to Straight Talk with Kate and Crash on HTLA Radio 1, New York.
Woo-hoo! Yeah. Today is Monday, August 3rd, 2015. And if you can hear me, then you are listening to Straight Talk with your host, this intellectual Kate Taylor, and my co-host, everyone's favorite smoking, coffee-drinking newsman who needs no plan, Christopher Crash Jesus Taylor. Mm-hmm. Stay with us. We've got a show for you tonight that's going to trump anything you've heard on the radio before. That's right. We're talking about the season 6 premiere of this show, and we're going to be talking straight about this crazy presidential election. Even more of an historic race than putting the first black president in office is my prediction.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Plus so much more. This is HTLA Radio 1, the world's best talk radio on the world's first all brilliantly exceptional, all utterly original talk entertainment programming ever. Only one meeps. The best talk in New York, the best talk anywhere. If you've not yet been there, head on over to our world at www.newyorksbesttalk.com. We don't throw that term around loosely. Oh, no, we don't. We are the first, the original, and still the very best.
The one and only.
That's right. Broadcasting live tonight from Studio 2 in New York City.
You betcha.
That's right.
And that's right, the show that started it all, gang. 6 years later, still bringing you the best in celebrity guests, timeless topics, and talk that you can take with you. Straight Talk.
You know it. Talking straight about the issues that matter with those to whom they matter most has been the cornerstone of this show since its inception. But despite the film premieres and celebrity guests and writers and authors, unless you've been with us since the beginning, and I know some of you have, so thank you, you may not know that Straight Talk originated as a political show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's right. In some ways, I guess it still is, as we're going to talk straight or not talk at all here, because there is no PC in HTLA.
That's right, and we do thank you so much for all your support over the years. Send us some feedback and contact us, and enjoy your visit to the world of HTLA at newyorksbesttalk.com.
This is why I hope you'll keep your iTunes, tablets, and browsers locked in with us. And while we can't guarantee to get you on the air, when we're live like we are tonight, feel free to call in and talk straight with us, too. That's 914-873-1NYC. 914-873-1692.
Oh, yeah.
With that, and as always, there's a lot to get to tonight, so before we get rolling here, Superfine, sir, would you be so kind as to get to the station business, if you please?
Well, I would be honored, my dear, to handle the station business, so here we go. Tonight's Straight Talk is, of course, brought to you by the fine folks at Tim Hortons, New York City, now with those 8 fine locations in the city to serve all your coffee and baked goods needs. Tim Hortons is always fresh. Also by Netflix Original Productions. Make it a Netflix night. And hey, PreSonus. That's right. The world of audio gear, top of the line, digital or analog, you want to go to PreSonus.com. And also Fierce Kitty Omnimedia.
Meow.
There you go. Also be sure to follow us on the Twitter. Yes, for the station, it's at HTLA Radio and the number 1. For yours truly, it's at Crash Talkin'. And for the tweets that will never be apologized for ever under any circumstances whatsoever.
No.
You follow at Fierce Kitty Kate, and
right.
you'll get it all straight. Finally, remember to join us here every week because, of course, you never know who's going to show up on Straight Talk to talk straight. And now we got to say it before we roll here. It is time to say it.
Tonight's show is
powered by Procast.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Oh, it's been so long since I've had a chance to say that. I have not. We ended season 5 in April, but what a good season that was. We had some absolutely wonderful celebrity guests, some really great films that we promoted. Some really big highlights for me. Joe Berlinger, I'm a huge fan.
Absolutely, yeah.
As our 15-year-old daughter would say, I'm fangirling all over the place. I even did that interview with a brutal migraine because I was not missing that interview.
No, there was nothing you could do to not do that.
I know. It's such a good show, too. And he was so nice and awesome to talk to, too. So I hope we get to have him on again when he's got something new coming out.
I'm sure we will. Actually, I'd just have him back on just to have him on. Never mind.
Oh, gosh. I would pick his brain left and right. Absolutely. Sure. Robert Effin Patrick.
Oh,
he was so much fun.
You just can't forget the Robert Effin.
No.
Yeah,
that was a kind of convoluted interview and show, but that was a good one, too.
Well, it's kind of tough in situations like that where it's press junkets and you've got 70 cast members and a director who's never done anything before who has to be in the front. And it's annoying.
And all
as
we
hell.
wanted to do was talk to him.
Yeah.
It was kind of like all we wanted to do.
And then, of course, having two Roberts.
Yeah, that was funny,
So,
too.
Robert, tell us blah, 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 blah. And the other one answers.
I know.
And you're like, I didn't even know you did that. Cool,
Right.
okay.
And it was my starring question that I had written, I couldn't wait to ask, and then, wow, stuff like that happened.
Right.
When you ever since the internet's come about and all this kind of digital communication, everybody knows it's impossible to kind of get your affectations across and your intentions across digitally, whether it's email or even, verbally on the radio. It's even hard when you're on the phone, but try imagine via Skype and digitally and in a professional setting where you're interviewing somebody. So
absolutely,
the nerves get racked up just a little bit higher, and when it's an A-lister that you're talking to and it's a high profile thing that's premiering that week and they're counting on you to help get the word out about their project, and it makes you kind of nervous,
Well, it does. I've never actually personally felt that way, but I guess that's because I don't really view what we do is actually that important in that whole process.
Oh, see, well, that's his modesty talking. It's not true whatsoever, but of course it is, or else they wouldn't call us and come to us, obviously.
Well, yeah, no, I get that. You're right.
Because
absolutely.
we don't seek them out, they seek us out, thankfully, and thank you so much. We'll continue to give you the best promos we can here at HTLA Radio 1.
Or it's free.
That's right. Well, it is anyway, but
right.
At least that part of it. But yeah.
No, we make them, have us go to the premieres and make
those
us
food.
Are
the perks for me. Those are the perks, and it's gonna be so nice to next year start to hit all that too. We're going mobile next year, so that's gonna be a lot of fun.
You're gonna hit that, are you?
We are. Yes.
Oh, we
are.
It's gonna be a threesome.
Well, somebody's got to drive,
right?
And I'll hit that.
Oh,
and
I see.
then you can drive.
I see how
We're
it
going
goes.
mobile with the HTLA Mobile Studio next season, so next summer we should be hitting the circuits by then. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
We should be the circus by then?
We are going to have a media circus. If all the things we're working on work out, it's going to be a total media circus.
And if not, we'll just be more people you don't know.
Well, no, I don't think that would ever be possible. This is us we're talking about. We're going to start doing our webisodes, too, so you'll be able to see us again.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. It's going to be so much fun because we get the Munchkin involved, and, on our new house, we've decorated the place, and we have certain areas for filming while we're there so that we can incorporate it into the webisodes, not only when we're in the studio.
Right.
So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's actually going to be a little bit more of a production than the webisodes we shot in the studio. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And, well, the whole point I was making earlier about the interviews and the nerves and all that kind of stuff is because I don't feel like that when it comes to the political candidates. I don't care who the candidates are, whether they were actors previously or, obviously Donald Trump we know from many other things and being in the city and attending the same kind of things that, we've bumped into him so many times now it's not even funny. Mm-hmm. So obviously there's not going to be any nerves there.
Right.
and there's no one here going through this list of potential nominees that I find myself saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm fangirling."
Well, I don't know that Jedi Knight there, Scott Walker.
Scott Walker, the
Luke
governor
Scott
of
Walker.
Wisconsin.
That's right.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Wisconsin is cheese. I don't think I'll be nervous about anything that has to do with cheese.
Oh, okay.
But,
All right.
yeah. But you know what I'm saying, though? So it's kind of like,
I know, yeah.
Even though one would think it was, of even more importance than interviewing actors and filmmakers and things,
Sure.
it's definitely going to be less intimidating for me.
Right.
Because, you put me in that intellectual opinion arena, which politics is entire opinion. Like, there's not a shred of fact going on in that entire thing. So it's entirely opinion. And you won't win when it's a battle of opinion with me. So I'm not worried about you.
Right.
Whereas when we do the entertainment thing and speak, there's actual, rules and stuff and formula and stuff. And
Sure.
there's an actual skill level that's attached to it and things that, you want to be sure to be on top of your game with as well.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
it's just a bit more nerve-wracking, I don't know how I'm going to react with Hillary, though. She might be the only one that I might get a bit nervous around for some strange reason.
Why? Because she's married to greatness? Because, her and her little Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine tour? Are you kidding?
No. I actually admire the woman for everything that she's done and everything that she's been through.
Well, see, and I think somebody just let her out of the loony bin. Yeah.
Well, that's because you're not a wife and you're not a mother and you're not...
I haven't been scorned.
That's right. You're not a wife and a mother stood by someone who...
Oh, what was that, 1986? Let it go.
Was humiliated, right? But then had the grace to stand by the person and keep going and do all that kind of stuff. And that's something that I admire greatly.
Okay.
So
I'll let you have that.
Do I want her to be president of the country? No. But... No, of course not. While I always did say that a mother should run the country.
Right.
Because that's what we need. We need some tough-talking mama to just straighten all these people out. It's like, because what is it really? Just a bunch of 2-year-olds fighting over who gets what and who's going to have the most of that and whose, point and project and, thing is going to be voted on and become successful or whatever it is, whose platform is going to be, the favored. So it just, to me, it's like a bunch of 2-year-olds in a preschool, if you want to break it down simply.
Problem is, to me, it's not even that advanced.
Well, it is, really. It is.
When I was a kid, I started watching news. I think I was around 11 years old. I clued in within a couple of months that politics, no matter where you are,
right,
it's all that same kind of thing. I mean, you have this one party with a certain ideology, you have another party with opposing ideologies, or several more parties, or what have you, and you have these people who are representatives of these parties. They're supposed to represent these things that they represent, and they go around and they promise you the world, and then you vote one of them in. That's the process. That's the way it is. That's the democratic dealio, and time after time after time, regime after regime, presidency after presidency, prime minister after prime minister, you hear from the people, the people of the country. Not ignore the media. That's
right.
A completely different animal. But you hear from the people of the country the exact same bitches and gripes that you always do. I'm not even kidding you. I'm hearing the same kind of complaints today that I heard 35 years ago.
Right.
Right. Somebody else completely different in the White House, somebody else completely different as Prime Minister of Canada or the UK or what have you, but it's the same complaints and the same gripes. And it's like, well, in 35 years, nobody has tackled this one problem. Like, take education in America.
Yeah.
That's always needed to be fixed.
Need it still, yeah.
Still needs to be fixed. And the latest guy here, well, he promised change in 2007, and we got absolutely no change to today.
No, really not. Honestly, we haven't. We've had a lot of hubbub about better health care that hasn't occurred either.
So really, one of the reasons that I personally am looking at Donald Trump with a twinkle in my eye is because he doesn't conform to any of that crap with any of the political parties. He doesn't conform to, there's no people that have got him in their pocket.
Right.
He's got his own pockets.
That's right. And this is the reason that, I think tonight's show and this premiere episode is either going to solidify our fan base or grow it or eliminate it, one or the other. But again, we don't apologize. At least I certainly don't for the things that I believe, because my opinions aren't prejudicial and airy-fairy based on non-experience or following the trends or any of that kind of ridiculous thing. They're based on actual practical experience living in this world, being someone who, gasp, is over 35 and married and married with children and, an active part in this country in every aspect that you could possibly be, including the media.
Yeah.
So, that gives me, I believe, a unique kind of perspective to speak. There was that one chick, though, that 22-year-old girl. Remember you played me her clip? I forget what show she was on. And it was about... What were they talking about? The Confederate flag? Or it was one of those issues.
I think it was the 4 dead Marines and the Navy sailor.
Right, yes. But here's the thing. The whole point that I had a lot of respect for this 22-year-old is that, it's all about this world has gone to a politically correct platform in its entirety now, where our children are even being raised that they're not allowed to think independently. They have to think whatever the politically correct line is, so much so that they're afraid to, say they don't like something or that something isn't okay with them or, that they're not comfortable with being forced into all this fluidity and all this kind of stuff.
Well, they're afraid of deviating from the deviations.
Well, right now the deviations are now the norm, and this political correctness stuff, what started out with good intent as, let's just try to, we can't hold our tongues, let's just make everybody do it. That kind of thing.
Right.
Well, there's an inherent danger in that. And, you can say whatever you like, but it's my firm belief at a hugely educated psychological background level that the rash of school shootings and all these mass shootings and all these things like that have come from a decade of repressed opinion and repressed everything. The reason we're seeing so much of this exploding in this country now, rather than anywhere else, is the heavy political correct climate here. I mean, when I start to see celebrities say how they feel about something, and then a half a day later apologize and backtrack and say, no, you took me out of context. No, you didn't take me out of context. I said it. It's how I feel. You don't like it. Stop listening. End of story.
Right.
And people who have built careers and raised families and have employed hundreds, and their families and their children are being supported because of the empires that these people have built. They have an opinion, and then all of a sudden they lose everything.
Well, don't see that's kind of what we got to talk about too, is because I can tell you right now, if you were working as NBC anchor for NBC News in New York, there's no way you would say anything that you're saying right now, because you couldn't, because tomorrow you would be fired.
Right.
It's by definition that because you're on the periphery and you're not owned by any of those
independent media person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's by that fact that you can actually say this. But where the problem lies, of course, is when that NBC anchor can't anymore for fear of losing their job.
And that's where we're at now. And that's
whole not
reason.
A free America.
That's right. And I think that it's going to take the independent media people, i.e. us and those like us, to, start saying and stop apologizing. And then everybody will realize the world is not going to collapse. Right. If you say what you feel, it's not going to collapse.
Well, and so what? Somebody gets ticked off.
I mean, you know what? What are you going to say about me? I'm a white Anglo. I was raised Roman Catholic. Now I'm a Buddhist. Mother of 2. Alternative lifestyle living. I smoke. I drink coffee. I have mega opinions. I also do charitable works. I do everything I can possibly do to be the best person I can be. Mm-hmm. But, anything what could you possibly say about me? I'm English. I'm Irish. I'm
those cheetah print shoes.
There you go. Right? You're going to make fun of my cheetah sneakers? Okay, you go on. But I had those 2 years before they went on trend. So see, I am
you're a trendsetter.
I am a trendsetter. I'm ahead of the game. That's right. I'm before my time. Exactly. So right. But this is the reason that we're doing this whole kind of Trump thing, because it is our opinion, and mine especially. But I know that my husband shares it. That. And I hate to say it, he's exactly what we need, because he doesn't follow the political party lines in either direction. He'll be given the facts, and he'll make the best choice based on the facts. And he's not going to care one way or another whether it's better for the Republicans or better for the Democrats or better for the rich or better for the poor. This is a guy who came up and made himself. So he's seen both sides, you know. And while he did have, you know, a better upbringing than, you know, most people, he had a military academy education, you know, and, you know, he had some breaks that others didn't have. He also lost everything and rebuilt. And in this country, and the state of this country, we need somebody who knows how to do that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we need.
That's exactly what we need.
Exactly.
You can't cut out anything more perfect than that.
And I'm sorry, Salma Hayek. If he thinks that all Mexicans are rapists and killers, then that's his opinion. You don't want to vote for him? Don't. End of story. You should hear what the people you actually voted for say about you behind your back. You know, at least he's got the guts to say it out loud.
Exactly.
And that just makes me respect him more. You know, and that's it. And that's just the way it is. I think you're a great actress. You're sexy as hell. I love you. You're amazing. But, you know, if you're not going to come and hang out with me because I'm backing Trump, she won't even say his name. That's how angry she is.
Really?
Yeah. She's Mexican and Lebanese, and she's got it all up her butt.
She probably can't say his name because if you remember a couple of weeks ago in the news, there was that little 9-year-old Mexican girl who was pissed off because he had said something that offended the little 9-year-old Mexican girl. Yeah, excuse me, 9-year-olds don't care about this stuff,
and they
by
shouldn't,
the way.
Actually. If you're involving your 9-year-olds and making that 9-year-old say a political statement just to whatever, then you have some issues.
But, I mean, she was like, you know, Mexicans are the ones that build the buildings and cut the lawns, so respect us. Well, you just did yourself in. If you're doing the lawn, you don't get much respect.
Well, it's not even that. I respect the honest family people that are trying to support their families and come here and want to do that, legal or illegal. I'm not all about, oh, you know, if they're not legal, then kick them out and blah, blah, blah. I married an illegal, for God's sakes. You know, so that's right. You know, and the only reason he was here and finally got his resident alien status and all that stuff is because he's Canadian and he's not Mexican and he's not Middle Eastern. And that's the only reason.
I am El Crash Jesus.
That's right. So do we benefit from that stuff?
Yeah,
of course we do.
I'll have you know something. I didn't come to this country and do lawns. I didn't come to this country and build buildings.
No.
I start companies.
Well, that's true, too.
I employ people.
That's true, too. But aside from all of that good stuff, I don't care if you're a gravedigger or a lawn guy or my housekeeper. Whatever it is irrelevant if you're honest. Any Mexican that gets angry about what Donald Trump had to say should only be angry if someone in their family are killers and rapists. If you don't have any family members that are rapists and killers, it shouldn't offend you.
You wouldn't care. Why would you care?
You know, you think I get mad every Irish joke about a drunk Irishman? Really?
They're not jokes, lass. It's real.
That's right. You know, well, I know the inside scoop. I married one. But you see what I'm saying? I wouldn't get upset about that.
No, what I see on Facebook there, on the feeds there, I see all the time. People always use it for the Irish. It's that picture of that Irish family, kids and adults, all passed out in different parts of the living room with a various assortment of empty bottles, all passed out, and they call it Irish yoga.
Right, yeah.
That's hilarious.
It is funny.
Why would I be offended at that?
That's right. If there's a reason, and we tried to explain this to our daughter, too. There's a reason that stereotypes are so used. They're true. Yeah. They are true.
Well, listen, we got to go for that first commercial break, but don't worry. When we come back, we're going to get right all into it. Trump City, the Trump card coming back in 2.
We're New York's best talk radio, HTLA Radio 1.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, Pop-Up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
When we arrived at our hotel in New York, the porter was so incredibly careless with our bags. And the room they gave us, it was beautiful. A broom closet. But the worst part was the shower. My wife drying herself with the Egyptian cotton towels. Shower curtain defined that whole vacation for her. Don't just visit New York. Visit TripAdvisor New York.
With millions of reviews, a visit to TripAdvisor makes any destination better.
Wait a sec. I found our colors.
We've made a decision.
Great. Let's go get you set up. We need the brushes. You should check out our workshop.
Push your color boundaries while staying well within your budget walls.
I want to paint something else.
More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. Bare Premium Plus Interior Paint. Only at the Home Depot and now only $23.46 a gallon.
White Rum has a new captain. Introducing the all-new Captain Morgan White Rum. 5 times distilled for a smoother taste.
You've got it locked to New York's best talk, HTLA Radio 1.
Well, there we go. We are back, and you are, of course, listening to Straight Talk with Kate and Crash on HTLA Radio 1, New York's best talk. And tonight,
we're bringing it.
We're talking about the Trump card.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. The Dawn.
Right. And we have quite a few candidates from both camps here. You know, George Pataki, for God's sakes. Is he seriously considering to run? He announced May 28th, so I guess so.
I really don't understand where all of these runners are coming from. They're coming out of the woodwork. You know,
Rick Santorum. I mean,
there's 23 or 24 in the field now. There's more coming all the time. Of course, with my daily news show, Coffee and Cigarettes, we're almost every day we're seeing another person coming out to run for president.
Yeah, and you know what? This Ben Carson, this African-American neurosurgeon, he's a pediatric neurosurgeon from Johns Hopkins.
Yeah.
The only reason anybody likes him at all is because he spoke out against Obamacare. And that's it. Otherwise, we don't need a doctor running the country.
No.
We need a doctor to be head of fixing healthcare. Okay. But
Sure.
You're not to be president. Go home.
That's Surgeon General, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
There are many other governors, okay, they have some experience running a state. I can see that, and the country's just a big state. Okay, fair enough. But, if you've done anything else, like there's this one guy, he's an author. His claim to fame is
I'm published on Amazon. Yeah.
That's right. He was in the Navy and he wrote a couple books.
Right.
Sorry, not enough experience to run my country.
No.
Thank you.
No.
Next window.
Don't know why anybody would even think that.
Now I got to say, Bobby Jindal, though. Now, he's a Hindi.
Oh, I know.
Right. But he's also a Rhodes Scholar, and he was also the governor of Louisiana. So, in my mind, he's somebody that I'd be interested in. Because he's got a unique kind of viewpoint, right? Well, he actually converted to Catholicism, so I shouldn't say he's a Hindi anymore. But he only did that, I think, to curry favor with the Christians. So he scores points on one end, but then he loses it for denouncing his heritage.
Well, and to be totally honest with you, I'm sorry, but every politician who's a politician loses it in my vote, because the whole game of politics is what's wrong.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. We've been mired in red tape bureaucracy for the entirety of this entire thing.
The reason, don't forget your point there, but the reason that I am so behind Donald Trump for president is that right from the get-go, right from announcing his candidacy, he isolated and underscored some very important points that are very much in his favor, and I think are the key reasons right now at this extreme early stage why he is leading by so much. The closest Republican that can touch him, he's leading them 2-1 in the polls.
Yeah.
And the Democrats don't even count. They're even way below, Luke Skywalker and all the rest of them. So, but he comes out. He has got the exact, I think, combination and makeup of life experience and personality type, which is very important.
It is important. You don't want a kowtow, wimpy wallflower, and you don't want somebody who's going to be a bully.
No, and given current situations around the world with our foreign policy and some of the kowtowing we've been doing to some of the wrong groups.
Oh my gosh, I know.
This man comes across to me as somebody who is going to do exactly what he says he's going to do. He's going to get good deals for America.
Finally.
He says he is going to bring back America the way it used to be.
And that's what we want, and that's what we need, and for a couple points and a couple reasons.
Right.
The first being what we were talking about earlier with the NBC anchors and media the way it is and not being allowed to say anything anymore.
Right.
This is the thing that's wrong, because people listen to the news and they listen to these people apologize for being humans and having feelings about things that are different from theirs or from anyone else's. And all that teaches is it's wrong to have independent thought. It's wrong to not like something. It's wrong to say you don't like something. And that is completely wrong. You ask any psychologist or psychiatrist, how beneficial it is to repress an opinion, especially a genuine one.
Mm-hmm.
And, any kind of repression is wrong.
Ask Cuba.
And it's part of the reason that, like I said, the violence has escalated and exploded in such a way over the last decade or so.
Right.
It's because this repression has now gotten to a ridiculous point when a woman who was raised Southern can't say she doesn't like black people. She was raised Southern, honey. Get over it. You're not changing her. You're not changing her generation, the generations before that. You want to work on the generations after, you be my guest.
Right.
But don't you dare try and change her. She was raised a certain way. And how dare you try and take her upbringing away from her because you disagree.
And or indeed, if everyone's entitled to their opinion, if men and women have died for that right, why can't we do it all of a sudden now?
That's right.
Or when we do, we lose our careers.
And we're ostracized.
Or we lose our
these
children.
Things. Exactly. This country isn't America anymore. Because, how many men have died? Yes, men have died for the right for us to have an opinion and say what we feel without repercussion, including against our own government, by the way, which we're the only country that can really do that.
Yeah.
But we're not allowed to say we don't like a certain group or a certain whatever it is. Even after 9/11, now you're talking to a New Yorker who went through that whole nightmare. I was okay with them not building a mosque on the site, but I was okay with, the religious tolerance because there's nothing wrong with the religion. There's something wrong with the fanaticism. So I didn't want to promote that intolerance. So I was okay with them, promoting the religion, but not the fanaticism. So
I'm not so lenient to that end. When I find out a couple of weeks ago the actual complete scope of the Muslim influence inside the borders of this country now.
Well, that's now. We're talking 14 years later. But what I'm saying is, when it first happened, in the heat of the moment, I wanted to go over there and blow them all up too. But then I had to understand there's women and children and peaceful men over there that didn't have any part and parcel to this. Even if they, had a part and parcel from our own government, because I blame our own government as much as I blame the radicals anyway, for promoting all that stuff back when. Hindsight's always 20/20 true. But, this is another point that I'm making about politicians. In general, like you say, they play the political game. What happens to us, little peons here in the country, is irrelevant. And, I'm a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. So don't get my truth-telling as pro-Democrat, because I'm not.
Right.
You can be aggressive, progressive as much as you want. It's just stupid, because you can bang on the gates all you want, and change only happens from the inside. So you're just wasting your time. And, people just get bored of listening to the banging, and they go home. So change only happens from the inside. And I'm sorry, but the only people that are ever going to be on the inside are the Republicans. Once in a while, a couple of you slip through and that's it. But no lasting change has ever been done. No. And we talked earlier about the potential, when Kennedy was in office and all that stuff. And they killed him because it'll never happen. It's just not what's supposed to be. So the sooner we acknowledge that fact and stop being pissed off about it, and work with it, maybe then we can affect some change. And in my mind, the answer is neither. Trump is only running as a Republican because he has to pick a party. But he is truly, in my mind, an independent.
Yeah.
He's not going to play their game. He's not going to toe the party line once he gets there. He's going to do what he thinks is right for the country. Because he grew up in New York, and he helped build that city. And that city is the backbone of this country. And so he's not going to let anybody, screw it up. That's his city. This is his country. He's not going to do it. And that's more important to me than anything else any other of these candidates could ever say or do or promise.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, well said. That's exactly what I would have said.
I thank you. Yeah. So, again, us independent media people, it has to start with us here. We have to not be afraid, because we can. To say what we feel and have our opinions. And once people realize that, the sky isn't going to fall down if we say we don't like this person or that group or that behavior or whatever it is, or if we use in a funny way, whether it's true or not, the stereotypes that everyone uses in hush-hush secret dinner parties,
It's funny you mentioned that, too, because last week, more stories of small business in this country being shut down and charged $500,000 or more in fines because a homosexual couple couldn't get a cake.
Oh, crikey. Go to another damn bakery, people. Get over it.
Well, here it is now that the homosexuals are now targeting groups and companies that they know won't. Right. Here's an example. A group that just got fined $354,000 by the Supreme Court. It's a Christian T-shirt shop company, and they were fined this after the court case that went to the Supreme Court. And they were fined $354,000 for not printing gay pride T-shirts. Now, who in their right mind?
Oh my God!
Who in their right mind would think that it's okay to go to a Christian T-shirt printing shop and ask them to print heathen shirts? You might as well ask them to print Love Satan shirts.
That's right.
They're not going to do it.
It's asinine. And it's just another... Oh, wait till you hear my diminished capacity show tomorrow. It is just another example of people having too much GD time on their hands. Not enough import of true self-awareness. No. To know what's when you have true self-awareness and when you're truly evolved, you don't feel the need to go out and do that stuff.
No.
You're at peace with yourself. You know yourself. The way to go is just, gentle discussing, not all this aggressive, progressive baloney.
I'd like to point out something else, too, that kind of really illustrates, and I guess you'd have to be about my age or older to really appreciate this, but it truly illustrates the absolute and utter lack of tolerance today as opposed to 1974. And the reason I'm using that, of course, is because 1974 was the first year that I ever saw a sign on a store door saying, "No shirt, no shoes, no service."
Oh, yeah, me too.
Oh, yeah, but here's the other thing. Yeah, but here's the thing. 1974 was also the height of the hippie movement.
Right.
That was also where nudist colonies and camps really exploded in this country.
That's right.
And
that was actually the beginning of the downfall of the country. But
if you were not wearing a shirt or if you were not wearing shoes, that was cool, man. But then businesses decided, well, we don't want a bunch of half-naked people in our shops, so we're putting up this no shirt, no shoes, no service.
Right.
And guess what? The public didn't sue anybody in Supreme Court. The public had to suck it up because the business had the right to deny service to anybody it felt for whatever reason. We couldn't go and sue them.
Oh, God, I imagine.
So now you have to ask yourself, geez, how have our laws changed that much that now a little bakery or a T-shirt shop can be sued into oblivion and owe more money than the company's worth just because of some matter of choice? This country was founded and is based in choice. How?
That's right. That's
how
what
is
I'm
this
saying.
happening?
You don't even understand how political correctness, quote unquote, is undermining the very foundation. Here's the irony. People are like, hi, sweetheart. Hi, baby. I just had a lovely little moth land on me. They're always in the studio because of all the lights. And they like to just come and sit on me. Hi, sweetheart. Anyway, the founding fathers of this country were the biggest hypocrites of all. And everybody loves to spout about how awesome they are. And, you know, the founding fathers didn't intend for the country to be the blah, 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 blah. You dummies. Wake up. Jefferson owned slaves. They all owned slaves. Mm-hmm. You know, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. You know.
So why not down with the American flag now and start a new country?
For real. Because, you know, the whole point was they tried to toe the party line and be politically correct and make everybody happy. So they said, okay, all men are created equal. Yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. We all knew that was just for the purposes of the peacekeeping and the peacemaking and the solidarity of the country after the Revolutionary War and all these things.
The spirit of the Constitution.
That's right.
That's all it is.
That's right. But in nowhere did it say, and if anybody else has a different opinion, well, we're going to destroy you.
No.
What?
That sounds mighty Islamic to me.
You know, it's just retarded. Sorry, New Jersey, but it is. You know, and that brings me to Chris Christie. God help you, man, if you run, let me tell you, because I'll go and punch you in the nuts because you have no business in any government building, let alone a presidential White House.
You'd have to lift the gun first.
Oh, God. Oh, it's like having, you know, the guy from Family Guy, Peter Griffin, run. Yeah. I'm telling you. And, I was born and raised in New Jersey, right outside of Manhattan. So, you know, they're both my states. You know, they're both my places.
Sure, yeah.
So, you know, but yeah, it's just god-awful. You know, I think aside from Trump, I think Giuliani's the only other person I'd want in the White House. As a New Yorker, I got to say. He,
you know, well, and that's something, you know, kind of that I've found sort of interesting about New Yorkers is they all bust their asses and get the job done.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's why they say if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
Right.
You know, we're not hippie LA, you know, where anybody can get in if they're pretty enough. No talent required, you know. And, you know, we require skill. We require a certain modicum of, you know, the ability to maintain and to pull your own weight and to contribute. You know, and that's the way it is, you know, and everybody has their stereotypes about each party, both Democrat and Republican. You know, are they true? Are they stereotypes? Then they're true, you know, but does that mean that, you know, it's like I said before, everybody has stereotypes. So what? You know, if you're going to base your opinion about one group or another because of the stereotype, you know,
right.
It's all circular. It's all ridiculously circular logic, the entire politically correct argument.
Absolutely,
you know,
yeah.
Because in order to be politically correct, everybody has, you know, the right to blah, 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 blah. But yet when we exercise that right, we deny the right to somebody else and all these things like that. So it's just immensely circular.
Well, the funny thing is the more circular it gets and the more you kind of delve into it, the more it actually looks like communism.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, what are we really doing and saying here?
I'll move to the socialist north. They have the best quality of life on the planet. Imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but truly.
Well, we're going to go for our second commercial break. Don't worry. When we come back, we're going to punch even more.
Yeah, we got some serious facts
to
talk about. It's not just what we think, people.
Oh, no.
No,
because that would be too much like Wolf Blitzer.
Right.
That's right. So we'll be back in 2.
You've got a locked to New York's best talk, HTLA Radio 1.
Glasses. White Rum has a new captain. Introducing the all-new Captain Morgan White Rum. 5 times distilled for a smoother taste.
Let's do a brand new day. Let's step away from the bland and let the color fly. Let's get to the one store with more number one choices and match this or this without using too much of this. Then, let's crack open a can and get to it. Paint? No. Let's do POW. Let's do this. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. Glidden Duo starts at a new lower price of $25.46 a gallon.
When we arrived at our hotel in New York, the porter was so incredibly careless with our bags. And the room they gave us, it was beautiful. A broom closet. But the worst part was the shower. My wife drying herself with the
Egyptian cotton towels.
Shower curtain. Define that whole vacation for her. Don't just visit New York.
Visit TripAdvisor New York.
With millions of reviews, a visit to TripAdvisor makes any destination better.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop-up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
We're New York's best talk radio, HTLA Radio 1.
Ah, yes. Oh,
well,
yeah.
Welcome back. You are listening to Straight Talk on HTLA Radio 1, New York's best talk. You're listening to Kate and Crash, and we're...
Trumping the Trump. We're tooting the Trump's trumpet.
Well, I guess that's something.
And we're trumping the Trump's trumpet. Tooting his horn. That's what we're doing. We're tooting the trumpet.
Really?
Yes, we are.
All right.
You know, I've never wanted to be politically active. I've never wanted to support a candidate, or, you know, you're not going to see me handing out flyers, or possibly I'd host a dinner or some sort of thing for someone I really strongly believed in, such as Trump. This is the first time I've ever considered it.
Right.
But I have some important points that might help you to understand why I feel that way. Some of them I've already mentioned.
Yeah.
And then I go to find that I'm not the only one who thinks that way. You know, there's been a great article in the New York Post, Why We Need a President Trump. And obviously, you know, I think that the majority of New York, I would hope, would support one of their own, in my opinion, you know. But there are some serious reasons why we need someone like Donald Trump. If only on the surface you have to say that these things are accurate. So let's take into consideration the fact that right now this nation faces threats unlike any we've ever faced before.
Right.
We've got ISIS. That's the hugest right now of all. When you have our kids running away to marry these scumbags and join these scumbags and do all these things. And we have,
only to be turned out as prostitutes for 3 years until they can escape.
Yeah, whatever. And our own, boys going and trying to blow up countries and doing this kind of thing. Then they're a serious threat and they have to be taken out completely. No holds barred, no merge. What's all this pussyfooting around already? Don't tell me you don't know where they are. Go get them, wipe them out. End of story. What is this? The politically correct thing to do is not assassinate now? Well, that's another reason we need to get rid of political correctness.
There you go.
Right. $18 trillion in U.S. debt. You tell me who on that 26-something presidential wannabe roster can fix it like Donald Trump can. Go ahead. I dare you.
Well, and I even think, I believe that even he would be smart enough to say that he couldn't fix it.
Well,
but he would have some very good ideas and initiatives on how to get us back on track.
If anybody could, though, it would be he. Broken borders. Let's not, there's no reason that we shouldn't, Canada and the U.S. need to work together because Canada allows a lot of people from countries we don't let in, so they can come to us through there. So I think we really need to strengthen the relationship between the U.S. and Canada. And, Mexico is part of our country to me. We vacation there. It's like you drive there from L.A., you have a great weekend, you come home. It's just like Florida. So to me, there is no reason that we shouldn't annex it, utilize its resources, and give everybody there the same chance that we have here. There's just no reason, in my opinion, not to do that. Sorry, there isn't. Because then we would be able to have more control over the bad things that come out of Mexico, like the rapists and the killers and the drug dealers and all that stuff.
Rapists and killers aren't a problem. The
cartels they're not.
Are the problem.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We don't have much influence down there now because they're their own country with their own laws, their own blah, blah, blahs. And if we annexed it like Puerto Rico, at least, if we gave them the influx of an infusion of the economic bolster that we did, maybe inside the country they'd be more willing to help oust these.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
That's fair enough, yeah.
Well, it's either that or close the borders. And, I don't want to see that because there are some very decent, like I said, loving, amazing people that deserve a chance in this country like anybody else.
Absolutely.
And they're closer to us than the people in Africa. So they should get first shot, in my opinion.
Fair point.
Right. Okay. All right. So rampant joblessness. Joblessness, people. In 2015, in 2015, we haven't been this bad since the Great Depression.
No.
And FDR's dead. So, we need somebody else who's going to be as, strong and
forward thinking.
That's right. Right? He did the deal thing, right? The big deal, the great deal, whatever it was. My American history is not as good as my European history, but I'm a snob. Sue me. Anyway, okay. Violent crime. Again, I don't see much of a problem with violent crime as much as it is domestic crime. And like I said, the mass crime and the rampage shooters and, the fact that these criminals are getting younger and younger is really, really scary and really, really unnerving. It's no longer the frustrated 45-year-old who pulls a Michael Douglas and goes and shoots up his bank because he got fired or whatever it is.
Right.
Now it's kids who didn't get a date with the girl they wanted for the prom and they just decided to go and wipe out their senior class.
Or even the worst ones who don't know of any other way to get themselves remembered, so they have to go and do a massacre.
Exactly. What kind of situational society are we creating where children feel that their only way to feel important is to murder?
Yeah. That's the complete total breakdown, a PC systematic surgical breakdown of the traditional family home.
Well, that's something else that I believe Trump would help to initiate. Only by virtue of losing the political correct ideology can we feel safe enough to say, hey, we need a traditional family structure.
Right.
I've never been afraid to say it. Because I've lived it, and I've seen what it's like. And I've also lived as a single mother for, quite a few years before my remarriage. And, let me tell you, it's all hype. It's all crap, people. Any woman who tells you they're not exhausted and soulless inside at some point after trying to juggle all this crap is a liar. You have to pick one. You know, you can't give 50-50. Can't give, and don't say you can give 100% to your kids and 100% to your job because you can't.
No.
You just can't. You know, so you have to buck up and be a real woman and admit that, you know, and pick one. You know, and I am not adverse to, you know, our son was a surprise. But I was a mother when I had my child and they were little. And, you know, once she grew up and, you know, started becoming more independent, I went back to school and I became more of a career person again.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's a change of focus, different.
That's right.
Right.
But the kids were first when the kids were little. You know, now my son is
you don't
little
sit there
again.
saying the kids are first when you're sitting on your 12th hour of overtime at work.
That's right. And I understand you got to feed him, and I understand it's a two-income, you know, situation. But these are the things that need to be fixed, you know, because if it's bad enough that dads are never around, but when the mothers aren't around either, what do you think the kids are growing up to be? You know, mass shooters. Insecure, you know, gender fluid. You know, there's just so many things. There's no role models. There's no examples for anything anymore.
No.
You know, where are the days, you know, and I swear to God, if my mother was probably rolling over in her grave because I was always the progressive. I grew up in the 60s, 70s, you know, all this kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
When she was all about, oh no, traditionalism, you'll see. And son of a gun, if it's not the truth, you know, and it takes a lot for me to say that, you know, after having been, you know, what I was as a teenager as well, you know.
Right.
And now to hear the things coming out of my mouth to my daughter, like she said to me when I was a teenager, you know. So, but it's the truth. Unless children have that role model, they don't have anything to model against. And, you know, kids need to feel secure in their own skin, have a place in their own home, in their own family, in their own life, before you can expect them to go out and be and do anything.
All right. Number 2.
Yeah. Well, that's true. But, you know, yeah. So these are all these things. This is the reason that America needs this kind of very strong, decisive leadership.
Yep.
These are all these reasons.
I'll give you that.
Here's 10 reasons that Trump would make a stellar president. And this is just surface, of course, but they are true, like I said. He believes in American exceptionalism. You know, everybody says America's great, America's this, but he actually believes it. He lives it and he knows it because, you know, he's been part of building that, you know, for realsies. You know, he didn't grow up in Hawaii and then just get transplanted to D.C., you know.
He didn't grow up in a mud hut in Africa.
Right, that's true. Trump's tough. He's unafraid to flex America's muscles, and he has the backbone America needs to take on the evil growing around the world, i.e. ISIS and all these other ones. You know, they're coming in because there's nobody stopping them.
No.
You know, and we have the greatest military force in the world. I really believe that. Yes, okay. Fair enough.
10 years ago.
Fair enough.
Since all this don't ask, don't tell, and all this gay and all this lesbian and all this transgender and
girls can come in and do all these things.
No, we're not. We don't instill the same fear when you know, the bad guys over there think that any one of those guys over of us.
How many women are in the Spetsnaz?
0.
Right. How many women are in the Israeli? Well, they do have a lot. And
Israeli army, not special forces.
Okay. Because I know the Israeli women army, you know, the women in the Israeli army, I wouldn't want to fight them.
Contrary to popular opinion, there's no U.S. Navy SEALs that are women. There is no U.S. Rangers that are women. They have never been able to pass the basic training course. There is still no women in the SAS.
Right.
Pretty much any special forces you're talking about anywhere in the world, there's no women because they can't do the job.
Right.
That's not going to change. You can stick as many women as you want through those training courses. Good luck.
And maybe intellectually and all that stuff, but just physically, there's just, you know, there's that disparity. You know?
Look at the intelligence agencies, for example. The CIA, they employ tens of thousands of women in all different aspects. Not active agents out there in the front lines, but in analyst positions and you know, very valued members of the intelligence community.
Right.
But they're not running around like
Spy that just came out. That's a movie.
Yeah, that's a movie.
That's a movie.
It's a good movie.
It was
I enjoyed
so funny. Yes, it was.
You
but
bet.
Jason was in it. That's why we watched it.
Oh yeah, he was brilliant. Always is. Always is.
Yes, he is.
Anyway, Trump.
Right, okay. So he's an experienced and tough deal maker. Nobody can disparage these things. These are things that are truths. They're facts. They're truths. You know, and those first three things nobody could have ever said about Obama. Not when he was running the first time, not the second time.
Or now.
Never. Right, exactly.
Doesn't exist in the man. Nope.
That's right. You know, Trump's not politically correct. He's not afraid to say what he believes and has ignited an honest debate. There can be no change, no progress in this world, even in your own GD homes, people, if you live the politically correct model. Because there's no honesty in it. You know, It's just candy coating. I don't want to hurt your feelings. So, yeah, okay, honey, it's okay. We'll support you. It's not okay. It's not okay. You know, you're putting yourselves in danger. You're putting yourselves out there. You're holding yourselves out there to ridicule all this stupid stuff. Smack them upside the head. Get back to your schoolwork. Get back to what you're supposed to be doing. You know what? When you're 30, come talk to me. That's pretty much the way it's got to be. You know, and I speak from wanting to be a rap star when I was 12 and wearing the big gold earrings and the fly girl hair and all that stuff. And you couldn't have talked me out of not being that when I was that age.
No.
I would have died for that cause. You know, I would have died for that cause. You know, but this is why teenagers need us. This is why they need us.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And Donald Trump is in essence staying with his non-political correct stance. You know, he's smacking him up the head and he's saying, listen, just go do this job and come back when you're 30. Pretty much is what he's doing.
Right.
And that's it. And that's what we need. Sorry, that's what we need. He demands high performance. And as we know, he'll fire anybody that doesn't meet his expectations.
Well, we can't have that. See, this is the other problem with this.
I think that's exactly what we need. And you, mister, don't tell me that
absolutely.
You wouldn't go in there and fire everybody who did. Come
You're
on.
missing my point. What the hell are you talking about? I was about to say that 20 years ago, you certainly couldn't call into work gay.
Oh.
And get the day off. You can now.
Yeah, you can.
And employers just have to suck that up because it's your right to call in gay and sit around and watch a bunch of Turkish bath videos.
That's true. That's true. When did that become... yeah. That's true. I thought you were going to say he can't just blanket fire everybody because then there'd be nobody left.
Well, yeah, he can because I'm sorry, this nation has gotten to a point of just lackadaisical. Everybody owes me everything, and nobody's going to tell me nothing. And
that's true.
You can't tell me I'm bad at my job. Well, I'm sorry, we can. There's actually metrics and measurements to gauge pretty much any job on this planet. And if you're not measuring up, you're gone. I don't care if you're gay.
I've actually had my daughter say to, you know, when stuff hasn't gone well at school, to make an excuse. Oh, well, just tell them it's an LGBT issue, and I'll get away with it.
Exactly. They know how to use that.
Yeah. I was like, I couldn't believe it. My jaw dropped and hit the floor.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to the days where you like heated up a pad and pretended you had a fever or something?
Well, I'm telling you, it's not going to be long before you can just call into a school at the beginning of the school year after being there for 2 or 3 days. You don't like the friends you've made, so you just call in and say, well, you can give me my grade 8 now because I'm LGBT and I'm getting beaten up and ridiculed at school.
Right.
The school's going to start handing, okay, well, here you go. See you in grade 9.
Exactly.
And then what are you going to have?
Nothing.
And that's another problem with this country. The values that Trump talks about to make America great again, everybody had to work bloody hard.
Right. It's not easy.
You don't anymore.
You have to do your part. You have to do your roles. You got to suck it up. Men used to be men, and women used to know how to support them and let them be men. And that doesn't happen anymore either.
No.
Women are the first people now to beta male them and beat them up and kowtow them and make them feel emasculated.
Yeah, so that they feel good.
Yeah, but how do they at the end of the day when they're by themselves or when they're with somebody who can't make them feel like a woman?
I don't know.
I don't either. Anyway, speaking of education, that's, number 6. Trump is severely committed to education because he understands.
Absolutely.
Idiots can't do a thing. Right. So there you go. Trump built that business and many, many more, and he's going to run America like a business. And we've all seen how badly this country gets run when it's not run like a business. I forget who there was one motivational speaker or something that I listened to, and gosh, I want to say Deepak Chopra or Wayne Dyer or one of those guys, but he runs his home like a business and his business like a home. So In other words, he shows his employees that he cares about them and he's not just a scumbag employer.
Mm-hmm.
But at home, he runs his home like a business because everybody's got to pull their weight, do their part.
That's Richard Branson that said that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was somebody. Okay. Right. That's right. Yes, you're right. Good.
I know.
Good thinking, Daddy. Okay.
I know.
So, yeah.
I read the book.
Yeah. Okay. So, this is the reason. This is part and parcel of what's true, but it's going back to what you said, where everybody's got their role to play, everybody's got to pull their weight, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is so hell-bent on being the star of their own drama. With no supporting players, nobody's going to get anywhere. There has to be supporting players. There has to be, you can be the star in your own life, but you have to realize that your stage isn't the guy next to his stage.
No.
He's got his own stage, and you have to be the supporting player on his stage. And that's it. And that kind of community is the only way we're going to work it. And that doesn't mean that you're his understudy, buddy. That means that you're his supporting player, and you have to let him act off of you. And you can't try and steal his spotlight. Just be happy with your own spotlight. And that's that. And that's about the best metaphor that I can think of for that. But, it's true. Trump won't balance his job as president with golf and other social events. He's a very social animal, true. Mm-hmm. But he's going to take this so seriously that, he's probably not going to have any vacation, or there's not going to be any golfing outings with the president of Yemen or something like that for him. Because time is money and he doesn't have time to waste. He's going to sit down, he's going to have the meeting, and he's going to go home. And that's going to be it. And that's it. And that's another problem. Politics is a three-ring circus. It's a show. It's an entertainment. There's a reason there's a press conference right in the White House. There's a press room. There's a place to be on camera right there. Yep. And that's not going to be what he would do, because it's a job to him, just like every other job he's ever had. And that's it. So, and you got to admire that. His loyalty is going to be to America and Americans, not any political party, special interest group, or foreign entity. Now, that to me should be number one.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that's, like I was talking about before, where this is what I recognized in him before I even read that or saw that. This is the one thing that made me know this is the guy for us. If you're in a dangerous situation, do you want some balding, middle-aged, golf-playing, yum-yum to come to your rescue? Or do you want your dad to save you? Because he will.
Right.
And, that's the kind of way we feel about Trump. It doesn't matter who we are. I believe that he would save us. Whereas, there's no one else that I could look to and trust and really even closely resemble and feel like that about. And it might seem a bit of an extremism to make that statement, but I can't make my point on the radio any other way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's truly how I feel. And last but not least, Trump will support American laws, the Constitution, and the nation's borders. So, and he also understands all the spin and stuff that went into the Constitution and why there's so many amendments and so many this and so many that.
Well, it's all about the interpretation. And to be honest with you, the way that I know a lot of American people interpret the Constitution to their own ends all the time.
Second Amendment.
The way that the Supreme Court indeed interprets the Constitution to their own ends at any given point in time.
Right.
Yeah. There's an ideology shift that has to happen that cannot happen with the current bipartisan system.
No.
Period.
No, that's right.
That's the bottom line.
And I believe Trump, even though he's running as a Republican, if he gets elected, is going to be the beginning of the end of that system. Because he's going to change the way things are done just by nature of who he is. It's like you. There's nothing that my husband and I do that he doesn't go in there and he, like Warcraft. Great example. We started playing Warcraft. We couldn't just have two characters and play. He had to start a guild, and it had to be the best guild, and it had to have the most members, and it had to have the coolest everything. And Trump is like that too. You have your innovators in life. They just can't go in and be mediocre, and they just can't go in and sit by while things are mediocre.
No, you've got to change the game.
That's right. And you have to do that. And he's somebody that's going to run everything to, what he sees as the best standards for what that situation deserves. And he's not going to settle for less because he's got to kowtow to this party or that party or whatever. And if somebody can actually have the cojones to do that once, it'll break that system and things will start to change. And I always said, why does there have to be a bipartisan system? Why can't there just be an American president?
Very good point. Very good point.
So, yeah, Trump gets it, and I want him to win.
There you go. That's the official word right here from Studio 2 in downtown Manhattan. And we are going to go for a third commercial break, but don't you worry. When we come back, we got so much more for you. Hold on back in 2.
We're New York's best talk radio, HTLA Radio 1.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
White Rum has a new captain. Introducing the all-new Captain Morgan White Rum. 5 times distilled for a smoother taste.
Wait a sec. I found our colors.
We've made a decision.
Great. Let's go get you set up. We need the brushes. You should check out our workshop.
Push your color boundaries while staying well within your budget walls.
I want to paint something else.
More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. Bare Premium Plus Interior Paint. Only at the Home Depot and now only $23.46 a gallon.
When we arrived at our hotel in New York, the porter was so incredibly careless with our bags. And the room they gave us, it was beautiful. A broom closet. But the worst part was the shower. My wife drying herself with the
Egyptian cotton towels.
Shower curtain defined that whole vacation for her. Don't just visit New York.
Visit TripAdvisor New York.
With millions of reviews, a visit to TripAdvisor makes any destination better.
You've got it locked to New York's best talk, HTLA Radio 1.
Well, you know you do. That's right. You've got it tuned to HTLA Radio 1, New York's best talk. And, of course, tonight's Straight Talk, the Trump card. That's right. You're here with host Kate and Crash.
Oh, yeah.
HTLA Studio 2 with you right now tonight. And, well, if you can't figure out from the title, the Trump card, well, we're talking about the presidential candidate extraordinaire taking the nation essentially by storm, leading all polls more than 2-1 to the closest Republican, and not even a blip on the old radar for Donald Trump is any of the Democrats. And wow, we're just kind of working the show tonight, kind of breaking it all down for you. Well, I'm pretty sure after 70 minutes or so into the show here, you know our opinion.
That's right. That's right. And that's it. And people misunderstand him, too. He's just genuinely, I know people are going to laugh when they hear me say this, an incredibly lovable guy. He loves people. He loves America. He loves everything and everybody. He just doesn't put up with any crap. He just can't tolerate stupidity. He can't tolerate incompetence. He can't tolerate a lot of the same things I can't tolerate.
Right.
It's just the way it is. He's actually nicer about it than I am, if you ask me.
I would say that's fair.
Right. But, I'm not running for president, so that's cool. And I think that after all the missteps and bad choices that we really, come on, who else? Jeb Bush is second.
Oh my God!
Are you serious? Another Bush? Really? When I was teaching Tristan push in the bush, I was being facetious. I wasn't serious.
Yeah, no, that's just a nightmare right there.
The whole entire thing is a nightmare. Just could you imagine another Bush with ISIS running around?
No.
I mean, it's not going to happen. He chose the wrong year to run. Sorry there, Jeb, but there's no way. You're going to lose all of New York on that bet.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, yeah. So, and more of what you think, though. Because I know you have, very strong opinions about this whole political thing.
I have, publicly stated many times that I don't participate in the system, never will participate in the system.
Well, not as a technically native Canadian, no.
I don't care if I'm frickin' Chinese. I wouldn't participate in the system. It does not work.
Right.
I learned this at 11 years old. I'm not about to change my mind now.
Right. No, I know.
There has been nothing in my 47 years that has been indicative of changing my mind to the contrary of what I realized at 11 years old.
Right.
The only reason that I'm taking an interest in this particular election and in this particular candidate is because he is the wild card. He is like, he doesn't play the political game. He's a deal maker. He goes in, he negotiates for what's best on behalf of his own party, which is, well, up until now himself, but he's a proven exceptional negotiator. Why wouldn't we want someone like that in the Oval Office as opposed to the first black man or another Bush or a great man who fell asleep like Reagan or a great man who's having sex with interns like Clinton?
Right.
Give me a break.
Or Chris Christie, who'll lead his way through the White House.
Go back through all the presidents. Just pick one. There's an incident or there's a bloody nightmare associated with every single one of them.
That's right.
Every single one. There isn't one, rare exceptions like the third president of the United States that nobody knows and can remember and didn't do anything. Okay, so what? Inaction is good? Well, if you look at the actual game plan of the entire history of this country, yeah, it is. And what does that say about us? Why is nothing okay?
Yeah, that's the thing I don't understand. As a woman, I mean, I feel like I have more to go and fix this country than almost everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and it's sad for me because obviously that's not my, what I'm meant to do.
No.
And and then we have, the thing also that I hate about this whole political correct thing. It's like, the Gwyneth Paltrows and the vegans and the, the no-hos and the, all the trendy kind of, all this kind of, we're panzifying the entire country. I've said this before. We're raising generations of neurotics and scaredy cats and, wusses. And, when whomever it is that's going to come really comes, how many are we going to have that aren't just going to run screaming into the night, and just, become body count? And that's the sad thing because, even when I grew up in the 70s, like I said, I remember when, you felt safe in your country. You felt safe in your bed. You felt safe, and I don't feel safe anymore. I don't feel safe for my children. And I want that back. And I don't know any other person on this list that's going to give that to me.
Doesn't exist, no.
Well, he's the only one that I feel can do that. I feel like if Joe Schmo from Kokomo called him up and said, President Trump, I got this situation going on, and my family's really scared, and, we need help, and we don't know what to do, any other presidential entourage is going to say, go scratch, get lost, write him a letter, whatever. He'd fly out there and fix it, because that's just the kind of guy he is. And aside from that, I don't see anyone else being able to fix these issues. They're all monumental.
Yeah.
They're all monumental.
That's the problem. As
Right.
we've gone on, decades after decades after decades, things have gotten worse and worse and worse in just about every area of not only the law-making business, but in society, everything.
That's right. That's right. And,
you can't even have pride in something anymore. Oh, well, the rebel flag, the
That's
stars
right.
and bars.
Please, that gets me so angry. How dare you? First of all, were you around when your family members were killed or enslaved? No. So shut up.
Right.
If there's a Southern family that had relatives that actually did die, just like we had Union families that died, they're not allowed to honor their fallen family member because you don't agree with their politics?
Oh, no, and now they got to take it off of license plates. In today's headlines, now Virginia is taking it off their plates. You can't get it as an option anymore.
See, that's just stupid to me. I'm going to start an art installation. I'm just going to paint them. I'll just paint them on canvas. I'll put them in the gallery and people can buy them. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is just stupid. I'm English, people. Okay, descended from the line of the Norfolk Howards, and what, I can't have my family crest because you don't agree with my English politics? I mean, it's the same thing.
I'm Irish, and I wouldn't stop you.
That's right, and we still own them. So, yeah. See how that works? And that's the whole thing.
Yoga.
Yeah, that's right. You see, that's the whole thing. That's what I say. And do we... Honestly, there are a handful of Irish people that would actually get offended at that because it's the truth, and we know it's the truth, and the troubles are long behind now and all that kind of stuff. So it's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. You got to take life a little more lightly. And I'll tell you right now, if you people cared more about the stuff that was really important, then we'd have communities of families in houses that would make this country strong, and we wouldn't need to look outside because our own homes would be strong, and that would create communities that were strong, and that would create cities and states that were strong, and then we'd have a strong country
again.
Right. Europe knows that there are places in Europe that are entire provinces that are closer knit than people are in their own blocks, in their own neighborhoods.
Yeah, true story.
And it's just appalling to me. I've lived where I've lived for, quite a while now, before the new house. Mm-hmm. And I knew two neighbors, and I was always out there trying to help and do things for other people. And
the rest gave you cause not to like any more than two neighbors.
Well, that's true,
and the two neighbors ultimately gave you cause to not like the two neighbors.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But I still tried. When one was in an accident, I made a pot of gravy and meatballs and a box of spaghetti and brought it over there so the husband wouldn't have to cook dinner. Mm-hmm. I did that. And then when the other neighbor's car broke down, got up at 4 a.m. and left them to go get it so they wouldn't be late for work that day. But when
something happens to us and we need something,
that's
nowhere
right.
to be found tumbleweeds.
That's right. I had a neighbor who actually worked in the hospital where I had my son.
Yeah, right across the street.
That's right. And I needed a ride home a particular day. I stayed a little bit too long visiting with him. And the person wouldn't do it. And lived right across the street from me. Yeah. And, so that's the world we live in today. We don't live in that world. I'm hoping to God that there's places like in the Midwest, maybe in down south still, where communities are like I remember.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I don't know any here. I mean, I felt I used to live on the Upper East Side, and I felt more neighborly and community there than I do outside of the city.
Right.
And now we've bought a place with acreage, so we don't see our neighbors, so that's good for me. Mm-hmm. I don't want to anymore. Our Taylortown compound is going to be what we want, and it's going to be secure, and if you don't like it, stay out. And that's it. Because we have no choice. And I believe a couple years ago, something had happened, and, I told my meeps on my Facebook about it, how I felt really bad that situation had happened because it changed us as people and how we lived. Remember? We had a stalking incident. Something something happened to kind of, threaten our security publicly.
Mm-hmm.
That we didn't feel, Tristan wasn't around yet, so we didn't feel our daughter was safe because of the information that was brought out or whatever it was.
Right.
And they divulged our address or something like that. And it made me feel somehow that I'd never, I've always lived an open door policy. Hell, we didn't even lock our doors growing up, and I grew up in New Jersey. Right. And, and then I moved rural, outside of the city, in the city. They locked themselves, the apartments. But, I never felt unsafe in the city, and then where I moved next after the city, I still didn't lock my door, until that kind of incident happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we started to say, well, you know what? Now we're going to have crazy people and things, we're going to have our fans, we're going to have our not so fans, and we have to, be more aware of our own personal security kind of thing. And I think I mourned that for almost a week at one point, that we couldn't be like we were anymore. And I couldn't have an open door policy, and I couldn't just, have somebody come up to me and start talking to me and be open with them.
Yeah, you, I think, treated the whole thing a lot more sheltered. I, on the other hand, expect that stuff from people all the time, have for a good number of years, and none of that stuff surprised me. And it still doesn't. It hasn't changed my outlook at all. I've seen this coming.
Right, I know. Well, it did me. It's that whole kind of my innocence was lost that day kind of thing.
Right.
And I think that upset you more than anything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know. So, and it's unfortunate. Because now even, people that you would pay to help you and look out for you, you can't trust either.
Absolutely not.
That old adage, it's hard to get good help nowadays, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
I've had people that have worked for me and couldn't be trusted.
Recently, a number of parties and stuff that we've gone to in the city here with some friends of ours, they have actually taken to hiring former Secret Service as security for their parties and get-togethers and events.
Oh, that's true.
And I was talking to some of these Secret Service guys, of course, because, I smoke.
That's right. So he goes outside and
smokes. So I go outside and smoke. So, of course, I'm going to talk to the Secret Service guys, and they tell me about, what administrations they used to work for and how long and all the cool stuff they used to do and this, that, and the next thing. It's really good stuff. But, it kind of hit me, wow. We've got friends who use Secret Service for security now because they can't trust private security companies even.
Wow,
because
that's
private security
it
companies hire from where? Out there in the wacky public. And yeah, they have background checks. And yeah, you have this, that, and the next thing. You can never be sure.
That's right.
So, they've taken to hiring these former Secret Service agents that, they're from the old guard. You can expect that there's some
that
modicum
feeling
of
safety there that they don't have nowadays. Right.
But,
that can relate.
It just hit me kind of then that, wow, that it's gone to that level now.
Right. I remember that. And I you didn't tell me who that was until after we'd left and we were driving. We got stuck in the Lincoln Tunnel, too, for like 3.5 hours after that particular party. I remember that.
3.5 days.
That's right. I remember that now. It was like 4 a.m, too. And, we had nothing else to talk about, and I was like, "Oh, who's that guy we're talking?" And then you told me that. Mm-hmm. I remember that, and I remember saying that was a good idea and I hope you got his number, that kind of thing.
But the point is that we have terrorist attacks within our own borders. It's really no surprise to that end that you find out your friends are hiring Secret Service to cover their parties and events and things. But when you really stop and think about it, you got to stop and think about that and look at the bigger picture. And what is that bigger picture? Well, it's the state of our own country.
Right.
Why is that threat level so high?
True enough.
And
on a more relatable level, I've gone, we walk around our old neighborhood now, not the new one, because like I said, we don't see our neighbors in the new one. But we used to walk around the block of our old neighborhood and everything. And, there were often times when, there were things that would make me question and, I'd want to call and make sure the person was okay or do stuff like that, and that's so rare in this world today too.
Absolutely.
But
then 9 times out of 10, when you actually do that, they give you dirty looks because it ain't your business.
Right. Well, that's true too. And that's the thing, right? You try and be a good person and do the right thing and have concern for your fellow, neighbors and things like that. And it's resented instead of appreciated.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. True enough.
So, long story short, Trump will buy your vote, $20,000 each. Go see him.
No, he's kidding. Trump doesn't need your money, but he does need your support because I'm telling you, if you want this country fixed, if you're, one of those politically correct vegan fluid people, then, well, I guess you won't like Trump very much unless you want to see your country fixed. Look, he's not trying to get rid of anybody. He loves everybody. It's not about that. So let's not turn that into, let's not turn it into that. Just because he's a Republican doesn't mean that, all of a sudden everything's going to change and, we're going to go on a witch hunt for anybody who's not traditional and blah, 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 blah. But I think there's going to be a slow evolution, though, back towards the values that made this country strong and made this country great.
It's like you said on many a Straight Talk before, it's a pendulum, and it only swings so far one way before it comes crashing back, and you can't stop it.
It has to. It's been a certain way since the beginning of time, and there's a reason for that, and in the 70s there was this great push and this great change, and did it make anything better, really? And again, unless you're under 30 or 35 now, I guess.
Yeah, you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. But you really, I guess you wouldn't know, and that's the thing that sucks,
Absolutely.
So, but it was a lot better then, before. It really was.
Mm-hmm.
My kids can't go out and play in the tree houses and run around the block and go down the block till I call them for dinner. God help us.
Right.
So. All right,
Well, gang, we are out of time. I want to thank, of course, HTLA Radio 1, New York's besttalk.com for having us. And, this is the first of many now. We're kicking off the new season.
Yeah, season 6. It's so exciting, and I hope you'll join us. We're going to have some great guests. We're going to be doing some premieres. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff, but first and foremost, it is about what matters. We want to know what matters to you, too. If you want a topic to discuss, you want guests, let us know. We'll try and facilitate it. We're magic makers.
Absolutely. And you can do that by hitting the old Contact Us page at newyorksbesttalk.com.
That's right.
And, of course, the aforementioned Twitters and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Just find us on the Facebook. That's right.
Yeah. What she said. Yeah.
Well, yes. I'd like to thank HTLA Radio 1 for allowing us to bring you the issues that matter with the people to whom they matter most. That's you too,
Oh, yeah.
And for keeping us on the air for 6 seasons. Wow. And allowing us these eye-opening interactions with the most fabulous people, and that means you too.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also grateful for those that don't agree with us, because there has to be 2 sides to make a whole. So don't forget that too.
That's true.
A huge thank you to our supporters and sponsors, and of course, we're nothing without you, our listeners. Last but not at all least, thank you to my producer, co-host, and husband. You are the creator of everything and the constructor of my dreams, Christopher John Taylor.
There you go.
Now, be sure to be here next Monday, Meeps, because you never know who's going to show up on Straight Talk to talk straight. Do some straight talking of your own, and we can't kill the hypocrisy of political correctness until we all start talking straight.
There you go.
See you next time. Good night.
Good night.
Talk Radio, HTLA Radio 1.